Hi there, I'm Angie Mason. I'm an artist and designer. I have been doing this pretty much my whole adult life. I started out at an early age. I realized that I had an affinity. I gravitated toward visual art and just being creative. So I got serious with that in high school, and I attended a summer program, Summer Arts Institute in New Jersey, where I studied photography and painting and poetry. But before I get into all of my history, I was thinking about my path and my history, my roots, and how having these different roots planted at an early age, how it helped me grow into this tree where I branched out in all these different directions, which I'll talk to you about. But I wanted you to think about me and us as trees. We have roots, and those roots are our early age, interests, talents, things that we're interested in, things that we do. And you don't have to put too much thought into it, it's just what you gravitate toward. Now those can lead you and help you grow and branch out into different directions. And when I first started, one of my early branches took me to, one of my roots was in art school. So I can tell you about my roots. My roots were art school. I went to different schools for art focus, starting in high school. Then in college, I went to an official art school. I went to Parsons School of Design in New York City. I always just had a love of visual art and just being creative and making up worlds and stories. Like playing with my dolls and creating scenarios and ideas and characters, really. So then I took that early play and it translated into building my own worlds, building my own characters and ideas in my art, which I began exploring more deeply in art school. Now, also, when I was in art school, I mentioned I had studied different branches, different roots. There's a fine art route where I was studying painting and sculpture, and then I also studied in illustration and design. I took children's book classes, just editorial illustration, graphic design. There's so many different things you can do in an art world. So from there, in my early roots, I loved music and just having my group of friends in that community, and also traveling in nature. These are all things that sort of fed my growth. So then I actually then graduated from art school, and when I first graduated art school, that's pretty much when the internet began, when I graduated art school. And it was a big deal, because it never existed before, really. And we were all learning, and it was all new, and that branch really was an exciting path that I went down. I learned a lot. Everyone learned a lot. We learned together. And I also used my background in illustration and character design in these new roles that I was doing. I was making websites. I was designing characters and logos for different companies. And it was really great. And I got to meet an astronaut, Sally Ride. I worked with her. Isn't that neat? I worked at a company called space.com, which still exists. It's all about outer space. So from there, I switched it up and went into publishing. I ended up going into publishing from being working on websites and doing all that sort of thing, I went more traditional. I went back to a magazine, a travel magazine, where I was an in-house illustrator and art director. I worked on illustrations for stories and for the magazine, as well as working with other artists and sort of directing them what we needed to have done for stories, as well as designing the layouts for the magazine. Now from there, that branch grew as much as it could, and then, winds were blowing, and I ended up landing on a different branch. I went into packaging. That led me to packaging. That branch grew, and it took me into toy packaging, which was really exciting. Packaging was really cool because it made me think of a blank box or a blank package, almost like a canvas. So it really made me think about like painting and how it related to packaging and that kind of design. And it's been really fun. And I still, to this day, work on some packaging designs, even though I'm in children's book publishing. From toy packaging, I ended up going back into publishing, but children's publishing, where I'm presently at Scholastic, where I work on all different sort of promotional items and just promotional, both digital as well as printed assets, printed things. All the while I was doing all of this, I was also nurturing my fine art career, doing my paintings and drawings and sculptures, showing them in galleries. I had shows, solo shows and group shows, nationally and internationally, even showed in a couple museums, which was really cool. And I always kept growing that, and then it shifted. The branches kind of shifted and branched out and did things like art fairs, art festivals. And now, even though I always had a root or an early branch online, that landscape is changing, and I'm also doing more virtual things like podcasts and blogs and my YouTube channel. These are all places you can find me, and you can see me online at angiemason.com, or follow me on social media at Angie Mason Art on all of the things that you would be on if you're on there. So then I just want to say, in life, if we're a tree, nurture your roots. Help yourself grow, explore, be open. And then when you're growing your tree, allow for flexibility to shift and bend. There's going to be winds that really blow us and throw us off track. But if we're flexible, we might not lose too many branches. And you're going to lose some branches. It happens. Things shift and change, but you're going to keep growing, and you're going to become this big, beautiful tree. And even though we're losing some branches, do remember, failing or having failures, it's part of life. It really is how we learn. If I always just did something and it was good enough to get me going, I might not have a deeper understanding of something. So if I failed, it really taught me, and I looked deeper, and I had more growth, and maybe my branch and my tree got even bigger. So don't be so hard on yourself. Nurture yourself. Allow yourself to grow. Allow yourself to fail. Allow yourself to change directions and branch out. Try things. Explore. Be curious. Always be curious. Always keep learning. And also breathe. the storms, they're going to come and they're going to pass and just kind of knock you around. And it's always best to be as steady and as calm as we can, to be as strong and steady and flexible, to pivot and shift with the winds of life. So do breathe, pause, take it all in. Look at your beautiful branches, all the different things that you have done. Always do that. I will also say, I think it's a really good idea for people to keep journals and sketchbooks. Write your ideas down. Write your ideas down. Write them down, draw. I can't tell you how many big projects that I have had. They all mostly started in books. In books as just little doodles, little sketches. It's how you can grow your thoughts and projects. So, take it seriously. Make a practice. Even if it's 5 minutes a day in your book, writing down nonsense, writing down lists. I mean, I write lists. See? All my crazy lists? It's like bananas. But it really helps sort your brain, and it helps you, I think, go further with your goals, your ideas, and it also helps you tell your stories, to log your stories, because you never know when you're going to come back to a story and you read back and it means something deeper to you that can really turn and grow into something that you're unexpected. So these are really, I feel, art journals are encyclopedias of our minds. So you guys should make your own encyclopedia of your mind by keeping these books. And I mean, don't feel precious. Like, fill them up. Keep getting books and filling them up. And I write down the dates on them to log them, where they're from. I'll have books to show you, like a little sampling of, you see all these books of what I've done. I have an archive of books since I was, fairly pretty young. In my teens, I think was when I really started really holding on to my books and just saving them. And honestly, I have books when I was probably notebooks that I was probably like 13 years old, writing silly lyrics for made-up songs, and they might be embarrassing years later, or even not that many years later, but they're funny, and it was part of who I am, and I would never throw them out. I just like having the documentation of where I was, to remember who I was at different stages. So I think it's powerful to be able to tell our stories, and also to have that space that you can have a sort of a sacred space where you can, there he is, where you can just go wild and be as stupid or as playful and nonsensical or smart, funny, brilliant as you want to be, with no judgments, no one telling you, oh, you shouldn't, maybe you should tone it down, maybe you should do this, maybe go in this direction. No, it's your space to do whatever you want, and you just write down everything. Write down everything. And you can think of it kind of like a diary, except I feel like it's a little different because you're actually really focused on all different aspects of life, where I said, like, you're drawing, and I draw and I paint in my books, and, I come up with ideas for characters that I'm going to maybe develop later into something bigger, projects. So really, keep a book, keep an art journal. Think about that. Now, life is it's like the weather. The weather's always changing. We can't control these things, but we can be flexible and shift and bend our branches and our, be flexible. Just be flexible in life. Learn. Don't stop growing. Don't let things halt your growth or your progress. Just keep taking things in. Be a sponge. Absorb things. You know, the more you learn, the more you grow. And, you know, shifting and growing in life, it just makes our tree more full, bigger, more interesting. All these different branches that come out, you know? So that is pretty much my story. I'm trying to think. I can be found, obviously, online on any of the social medias, pretty much, at Angie Mason Art. You could just go to angiemason.com. I have a angiemason.com/links where it has all the stuff listed there. And if you have any questions, which I'm hoping that we could have a couple Q&A questions noted, that, you know, I could have it prepared to answer a good thoughtful answer ahead of time. So if you have any questions, you can ask me. You can find me here. These are the things. This is what I'm telling you. I think I'm going to make this graph a little bit more playful and fun and simplified. And maybe I do it live, maybe not. But that's basically, I wanted to give myself a little talk, a little practice run with this talk that I'm giving to the Girl Scout troop in November. And that is a little bit of my history of being a creative life and having a creative path that I followed, and how everyone's path looks different, but also with being creative in life, whatever path you choose, music, filmmaking, writing, whatever, know that there are so many different commercial. Hold on a second. I'll turn this off. Okay. So I had a little bit of a interruption. I'm not trying to be interrupted during my talk. I will have the door shut. I will have no computers going behind me. This is a test. I'm going to listen back to this and see how I can tweak it. Maybe I need to slow down and focus. And I think if I redo the graphic too, it'll be clearer where I can sort of make a thoughtful path. Like maybe a chronological path. Maybe I even do an illustration. This is seed. My seed is early art stuff. Who knows? But that's what I'm trying to get together, so I can at least give some sort of value, showing these kids that you can live a creative life and do different things and thrive. You could thrive. You don't have to be, you could do this and thrive and be successful and not have to struggle. You can work for others. You can work for yourself. You can work as a team. You can work as a group. You could start your own company. There's so many limitless possibilities. It's really about remaining open to these possibilities, to trying things, you know? Because it's that like entrepreneurial spirit. But I mean, and that's even if you're working for someone else. You could still have an entrepreneurial spirit and doing your things and trying out different things and learning and growing. So I hope that you guys keep nurturing your roots and keep growing your beautiful trees. Thank you for having me.